2 and 5% of the population have been killed. 60 to 70% of them civilians. A third of those killed are children. Over 1,000 of those killed are children below the age of 1. That's a ratio that has not existed in the 21st century. And indeed, you have to go back to World War II for these figures. Some of the destruction in cities in Gaza is greater than the destruction of Hiroshima.
Welcome back, everyone. Omar Bartov is on the Piers Morgan Show. If you don't know who he is an Israeli, a former IDF member, a historian and a genocide expert. He is here to set things straight. He provides a fantastic explanation in a way that I myself have never heard before. Let's take a look.
In November 2023, it appeared to me that the IDF was already carrying out war crimes and potentially crimes against humanity. But I did not think at the time that there was enough evidence to say that this was a genocidal campaign. There had been declarations by Israeli political and military figures, people with executive authority, that appeared to have a genocidal content, but it was not clear that this was being implemented on the ground. And I changed my mind in the spring of 2024 when I concluded that the official war goals of Israel, which were to destroy Hamas and to release the hostages, were not the actual goal of the campaign itself. The campaign was geared to accomplish something else, which was to make Gaza as a whole uninhabitable for its population by systematically destroying buildings, including universities, schools, mosques, parks, water plants, museums, whatever would be available for the population after the war to live in, but also to reconstitute itself as a group. So it appeared to me at the time, and of course now there's far more evidence to show that the goal was to push the population out of places where it was living under the cover of saying, well, this is going to be an area of operations, then to move into those areas, totally flatten them, as had been said in the initial statements by these leaders, and concentrate the population increasingly in the southern part of Gaza, of the Gaza Strip, on the Egyptian border, with the goal of somehow getting rid of them, moving them out. So this appears like ethnic cleansing, but the big difference is that in ethnic cleansing, you can actually move, hypothetically at least, the population out of the area that you want for yourself. But since the Palestinians can't go anywhere else, they are locked in that area, then every safe zone that they went to was immediately bombed again, which accounts for the very high number of people killed. We are talking about a minimum of 60,000, including 17,000 children, a minimum of 130,000 wounded, and many, many people who will never recover from what is happening right now, including, of course, the use of starvation as a goal of war, which we are seeing now unfolding in front of our eyes. So I concluded that this was clearly an attempt to remove the population from Gaza, flatten it entirely, and then accomplish what the far right in Israel would like to do, which is to make this an area for the settlement of Jews.
The goal, as Omar mentioned, has always been to get rid of the population. As he explains later, a genocide almost always starts as ethnic cleansing, getting rid of the people so you can take the land for yourself. That's been the Greater Israel mission all along. But what happens when that group of people have nowhere to go or refuse to go? By carpet bombing that particular population of people is a genocide.
What pro-Israelis in this debate say when they contradict the claim that it's genocide is that if they wanted to wage genocide by that definition, then how do people explain that, horrific though the death toll is, 50,000 to maybe 100,000, depending on what reports you want to believe, out of a population of 2.2 million, does not constitute the destruction of a whole group, and that if Israel wanted to kill all Palestinians, for argument's sake, they could do that. They have the firepower to do that, have nuclear weapons if they want to.
The definition is important because what it says is that you have to show intent to destroy a population in whole, a particular group, in whole or in part, as such. That is, what you're doing, you're not simply trying to kill people, you're trying to destroy the group. And you can do that through killing, and you can do it by other means. That is to make life impossible for that group, to degrade it to an extent that it would never be able to reconstitute itself again as a group, even if many of the people remain alive. And if you think, if Israel succeeded, let's say, and there are talks about it now, of removing the population to Indonesia, Libya, and Ethiopia, those who would be forced to leave after they were concentrated in a vast concentration camp on the ruins of Rafah, which is what the Minister of Defense, Israel Katz, talked about, then you would be destroying the group as such, although many people would remain alive. They would never be able to reconstitute themselves again as a group. And that was Raphael Lemkin, who came up with that definition, specifically stressed that that's the difference between genocide and massacre or crime against humanity or war crime. It is about the group and not simply about the individuals who make it up.
The assumption we've seen over the last 8 18 months is it can't be a genocide because the population has not been wiped out and Israel has all the firepower in the world to do that. That is incorrect and stupid. You don't wait till 2 million people have been killed to then say, oh right, it's now a genocide. By then it's too late. Omar does a fantastic job in breaking down the definition, saying the word destruction has many definitions of its own, and destruction is not only defined as killing, as he said, degrading and making life impossible. Israel has done both those things, killed and destroyed almost the entire Gaza Strip, starvation, no access to clean water, and also destroyed the health facilities. The basic necessities of life have been taken away from the Palestinian people.
But the difference is that in ethnic cleansing, what you're trying to do is to remove a particular ethnic group from an area that your own ethnic group would like to have. And where they go and what they do once they leave is their business. You don't care about it. In genocide, what you're trying to do is to destroy that group as a group, wherever it is. Now, in this case, and in many, many other cases of genocide in history, they began as ethnic cleansing. And you can go as far back as 1904, the German genocide of the Herero. You can talk about the Armenian genocide by the Ottoman Empire in World War I. And indeed, the Holocaust itself began as an attempt by the Nazi regime to be rid of Jews, just to expel them, to force them to emigrate someplace. But when people don't move because they don't want to leave their homes, or because they have no place to go and no one will take them in, then what do you do with them if you've already made the decision that they have to leave? Then you start using more and more force, and that's when ethnic cleansing becomes genocide. And in this case, I do think that the far right in Israel has spoken openly about it. What they want is to ethnically cleanse not only Gaza, but also the West Bank. And there is a creeping ethnic cleansing of the West Bank, and techniques from Gaza being imported, from IDF operations in Gaza being imported now to the West Bank. But the people there don't want to move. They want to stay in their homes. And so you use more and more force, more and more violence to persuade them, or as Israeli politicians say, to encourage them to leave, which means forcing them by killing them. If your response to what could be described as a genocidal attack by Hamas is to perpetrate genocide, then you have lost all moral standing on that. You cannot answer genocide with genocide and remain a member of the international community.
I find it absolutely ridiculous that Israeli officials have described October the 7th as a genocide. It's blatantly not a genocide. On the other hand, what they've inflicted on the Palestinian people over these last 18 months has been far worse than any October the 7th. It's literally 1000x times the carnage of October the 7th, if not more.
Even when I served in the IDF in the 1970s, it was not the most moral army in the world. If somebody was said more moral than the Danish army, I mean, how moral is it? But now it's a totally different organization from the one that I was in the war of 1973. Look, the statistics that are being cited are simply false. The number of civilians, the ratio of civilians to militants depends on how many militants have been killed. And curiously, even the IDF is citing the numbers being given by the health authorities, the so-called Hamas-controlled health authorities in Gaza. So the figures are false. The statistics are that between 2 and 5% of the population have been killed. 60 to 70% of them civilians. A third of those killed are children. Over 1,000 of those killed are children below the age of 1. That's a ratio that has not existed in the 21st century. And indeed, you have to go back to World War II for these figures. Some of the destruction in cities in Gaza is greater than the destruction of Hiroshima in nuclear weapons. And so we now have only one part of Gaza that is not completely flattened. And right now, as we speak, in Deir al-Balah, the IDF is involved in destroying it. And as one reserve Israeli officer said just a couple of days ago, what the IDF is involved in now is actually not fighting. And there hasn't been a war there since June of 2024. It's involved in destroying the place, flattening it, or protecting contractors that are being brought from Israel, paid very well for it, to destroy one building after another, so that over 70% of the structures in Gaza are no longer standing. 90% of the schools have been destroyed or damaged. So this is a rate of destruction that is unprecedented.
The IDF calls itself the most moral army in the world. Ha 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 ha. In my eyes, they're the most stupidest, evil army that's ever existed. The damage, as Omar explained earlier, is far worse than Hiroshima. The number of bombs that Israel has dropped on innocent souls is equivalent to more than 2 nuclear bombs. It's shocking that they are unable to provide any numbers of their own, as we've seen in the past, yet they themselves use the numbers from what they call is Hamas-controlled authorities. Unbelievable, and thanks to Omar, an Israeli, a former IDF genocide expert, calling it for what it is, a genocide. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Support me by liking and subscribing, and I'll see you all on the next video. Peace out.